Are you free in Skyrim, or is your path already decided for you? You start off this game as a prisoner with really no identity, or power, or family, or even a home, or really any context of much of anything. You're just someone who was at the wrong place at the wrong time. And yet, within an hour of playing Skyrim, the game is already going to tell you that you are the Dragonborn. You didn't earn it, you didn't choose it. This is just something you were born with, yet somehow never knew. So, naturally, this brings the question: is Skyrim about freedom, or is this about discovering a destiny that had already existed for your entire life within Skyrim? Are you actually free, like we think we are? And so I'm going to go ahead and start off with just one general idea that we're going to go ahead and break down. Skyrim gives you meaning before you make decisions. And well, what does that mean? Well, it means the Greybeards recognize you immediately. Dragons respond to you specifically and differently in comparison to anybody else in Skyrim. And the main story revolves around you from the very start. And from the very start, from Helgen, this idea of being dragonborn fits right into the mythic structure of Skyrim and the entire Elder Scrolls universe itself. You are directly pitted against Alduin from the very beginning. You did not choose this. This is just the blunt reality that has been chosen for you, or so it appears. You always were destined for this. And so, what does this mean? In order to fully explore this topic, we have to look at the lore itself. In the world's mythology, here within Elder Scrolls, figures like Akatosh are tied to the very idea of fate and time itself. And under the Nordic culture that you see so often here in Skyrim, Alduin is tied to the ending of time itself, referred to as the World Eater of sorts. In various different pieces of lore, Alduin is correlated with Sithis, who is contrasted to Anuel, who is the picture of order and being, and Sithis is that disruption to that order and being. And so, also, just a quick side note, all this information is available in books that you find just in Skyrim, Monomyth and the dichotomy of Alduin and Akatosh. And so, this is where that lore is unpacked. And from exploring all this and where the Dragonborn fits in this greater picture, we can come to one first conclusion. Your identity is not built, it's simply revealed. You always were the Dragonborn. You just didn't know it. And so when we think about the free agency that we have or we perceive we have in Skyrim, we can look at things like ignoring the main questline completely. We can join guilds instead of saving the world, and we can become whatever role we want. We never have to engage with what we're told is our destiny of being the Dragonborn and saving the world. We don't ever have to actually engage with that. The game itself does not force behavior. Your actions feel like they're completely your own. But even when you ignore this destiny, the world does not stop treating you like you're the Dragonborn. And so again, tying this back to the Monomyth, which again is a book that covers the creation of the entire world within Skyrim and Nirn and all the different perspectives and all the different dichotomies that are going on. It's that mortal agency is existing inside a universe that is already defined by metaphysical dualism, which simply means it's a universe that is built upon opposing foundational forces. Which, looking at this, when you then contrast this back to Anuel and Sithis, those are contrasting forces that make up the very being of reality itself, time and the disruption of time. Order and the disruption of that order. And so this contradiction becomes sharper. Skyrim's cosmology says that reality is structured tension. And Yet, when we play the game, it's clear that our gameplay says that we can freely move inside of it. And so now, as we uncover and unpack these things, the question's now deeper. Are you free, or are you simply expressing one side of a deeper cosmic duality and universe? And so let's actually take a step back a little bit. You control your actions, but not your role in the world of Skyrim. The dragons return no matter what. The story frames you as central. The world reacts to you differently than others, and yet you can still choose to ignore it. So then, are you choosing your path, or are you choosing how to live inside a role that you did not choose? And so I want to propose a little bit of a solution to this to kind of get us on the right track here. Skyrim brings us freedom in that behavior that I just mentioned, yet structure in its meaning. And that structure doesn't just exist in gameplay, it exists in how the world explains reality itself. I can't mention enough of how much we should probably all be reading books in Skyrim because of how lore packed it is. But tying this back to the monomyth, it presents to us on how much the world within the Elder Scrolls disagrees on what that reality is. There is tension between freedom and fate, and it's because the world itself is interpreted differently, even dependent on the race that you are. And so let's bring this back to the concept of time, which is represented by Akatosh in the Imperial belief. They hold to that it is viewed as orderly and linear, yet the Nordic culture is viewing it as cyclical and destructive, which is where Alduin comes into play. Because he is the destruction of that time. He is the ender of that time. That's what we see represented in the campaign itself. That's why he is the ender of worlds. But yet, how can all these different beliefs exist simultaneously? They're not just different stories, they're different ways of understanding that same reality. They don't disagree that time exists, they interpret it differently. And so when we look at all of this and bringing this back to the original question, are we free, or are we just fulfilling our fate and destiny? So the game doesn't just question your freedom, it's questioning the stability of meaning itself. And so, starting to tie this together, it's not about if freedom exists, because the game doesn't really question that. It's questioning the stability of the meaning itself. What does it mean to be free? What does it mean for that to somehow coexist with a fate and destiny that is already predetermined? How can you have both? And naturally, when we play Skyrim, we might not even give this second thought. We're not confused by it. We just naturally integrate it. We're given these three things at the same time, and yet we never really sit back and question it. We have real agency. We have real freedom. We choose everything that we do, yet we have a fixed identity that we did not choose, that we're the Dragonborn. Then you have a world that treats you as that meaningful agent from the very start. And yet none of these cancel each other out. Instead, our minds do something completely automatic that we don't even hardly give a second thought to. It fuses them into one coherent story about you. So instead of thinking that I'm just following the script that the game developers gave me, or that I'm fully free, what we experience when we play Skyrim is that this is my story happening in a real world. And so then again, reading the books of the monomyth and the dichotomy of Alduin and Akatosh really helped me put these pieces together and helped me be able to answer this question. Skyrim is simply not about choosing between freedom or fate. It's not an either or. It's not a true dichotomy. In fact, it's a false dichotomy. You can have both. But of how we structure this in the framework of what philosophical thought that the lore of Elder Scrolls does give us, that's what we can put together and make this make sense. It's really just freedom inside a structured world where meaning exists before you, but your actions still matter. You're not fully free, but you're not fully controlled either. And so, what is it? Skyrim holds both truths at the same time. Freedom in Skyrim simply does not exist outside of your fate. It exists inside a world where that fate is already built into everything but not fully explained yet. And so when you ask the question, am I free in Skyrim? The answer is no longer simple. And so when we put this all together, maybe Skyrim's actually not asking if you're free or if you're bound by fate. Maybe it's neither. Because in Skyrim, you are free. You choose everything you do. Every step, every quest, every path, every decision you make is a real choice you make. It is you exercising your agency. But yet, at the exact same time, the world keeps insisting that you are something that has already been written. A role you didn't select, a meaning you did not assign to yourself. And so, just when you think that contradiction is a whole story, just look a little deeper. Because even the world itself can't agree what it's built on. Again, going back to the creation, the dichotomy between Sithis and Anuel, and then Akatosh and Alduin, and all these different things. The foundation is not even itself agreed upon. And so what we can really take away from this is that time is order, and yet time is destruction. You are chosen, yet you are self-made. Reality is stable, yet reality is interpreted differently depending on who you ask in the Elder Scrolls world. So what is Skyrim, really? Skyrim is a world of freedom, a world of fate, or something stranger. So what is it? My final conclusion is that you are free, within a determined fate, inside an uncertain reality. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys next time.